Ready?
Oh, you can do it whenever you want because remember I can piece together things.
Okay. All right. Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show. You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back.
It's good to not be in my house right now. I kid you not. I left Monday. Took him to the doctor, and then we went home.
Yeah.
And Wednesday, he went to school, and I went to knitting club, and that was it.
You've been at
And I have been
home.
in my house 24/7 for the rest of it. So I have spent a grand total of 3 hours outside of my home.
Yikes.
Since in the past week. Because, last Sunday, I actually got to do stuff. Not much, but some stuff. And, starting Monday to today is Sunday. So, in the past 7 days, I have spent 3 hours outside of my home.
And it's been, raining every day this week.
So, I mean, literally outside of my home.
Can't
because
do anything.
It's been too gross to even do the water table outside.
Yeah.
And that's something that I can't set it up on my own while watching Walker, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna start with my one happy shout out, and then everything else is downhill.
Yeah.
Bring
it on.
Well, my one happy shout out is to my friend Cher. Fun story is that I met her because I bought a pair of shoes from her on Marketplace. And the brief little conversation we had, I was like, you seem cool and nice. And I also obviously met her when I picked up the shoes. And I was like, you seem really cool. I like your vibes. So with some encouragement from my friends at work, back when I had girlfriends at work, they were like, you should add her on Facebook and try to be friends. Or I think I messaged her or something and was like, would it be weird if I added you on Facebook? Anyways, we're Facebook friends. We went out to have food, and then she immediately moved out of state.
Rude.
I know. Anyways, she sent me a very sweet message the other day that said she's been listening to the podcast and wanted to tell us that we were kicking butt. And she's only on episode 50-something. Which I was like, that's so kind of you to say about our early work. It's like, thank you so much.
Well, I told you that the Pam episodes was my dad's favorite since the Katy murders. Which was our very first one.
I love that he likes the very first one we did.
And nothing in between until Pam. So fast forward 3 years.
Oh. My second announcement is less of an announcement, but more of it's a self-promotion announcement for us.
All right.
But it's also because I feel like I have to mention it. And it's also one of the reasons why this week has been horrible for me. Okay, the Titan submersible situation. Were you following that?
Do we have to talk about it?
I'm just going to say, this is all I'm going to say. Episode 63.
Yep.
The ocean wants to kill you.
When I first heard about the submersible, I was like, "Oh, Hannah's
I
gonna
was
love
right.
this.
I was right. I was right.
I love this.
I was right. I don't love that I was right. I don't love it. But I was right. The ocean is an incredibly dangerous place. And if you need more context on why, go listen to episode 63. Also, that's what I was following that since literally Tuesday. I heard about it on Monday. I started following it Tuesday. Tuesday through Thursday morning or afternoon, I literally, that entire time period, all I could think about was that I thought they were all still alive and sitting on the bottom of the ocean in total darkness, slowly dying. And I was like, that's the worst possible thing that I could ever imagine hell. That's actual hell. Mm-hmm. And then ever since they found the debris, all I have been thinking about is what happens during catastrophic decompression, or whatever they're calling it. And unfortunately now TikTok is just like, you want to know? Here's a million videos. And I just want to say, don't go in the ocean, anyone. I can't emphasize that enough. Just don't.
The ocean is not your friend.
The ocean's not your friend. Okay. My next announcement is our episode rating, which is another MA-17. So Dante and Tiny Tim and anyone else who's young and listening, stop listening. So check yourself before you wreck yourself. Are you old enough?
Oh, and then some.
And then some.
And then some, and then some.
Yep. And then our content warnings are for...
let's just say it's a whiskey episode for more than just our crappy weeks.
Yeah, it is. It is. Graphic violence, animal abuse that I will only very briefly mention.
We gloss over. That's how we do.
Also sexual abuse of a child that I will also gloss over. Cannibalism, etc.
Do you need palate cleansers?
Yeah, if you got them.
I've got some video palate cleansers that you can enjoy. I mean, the sounds might be enjoyable for everyone else.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take some. Are you going to give me one now? Or
no, okay. I'm just getting them queued
ready.
up.
Okay. I kind of alluded to this last week because this week I'm going to tell you about Hadden Clark, who is the convicted serial killer who confessed to the murder of Our Lady of the Dunes. I also like calling her Our Lady of the Dunes because it sounds like she's a saint.
Does.
I like it. And she should be.
Definitely wasn't.
She wasn't, but it sounds nice.
Yeah.
Just a quick there's several things I want to say at the top. But first of all, the majority of my information I got from an extensive article that was written by a true crime author named Adrian Havel. And he interviewed Hadden more than a dozen times in prison, which is how he got his information, or like a lot of his information. He also wrote a book called Born Evil, a true crime story of cannibalism and sexual murder. Which I don't know about sexual murder, but we'll get there. And then also, I think I mentioned this when we were talking about...
Doesn't sexual murder just means he gets sexual gratification from murdering someone?
Yeah, but I didn't get that from this, so...
I'll let you explain.
Yeah. And then, so he is one, I think I did mention this, that he reminded me a lot of Robert Chase, the vampire of Sacramento, the guy who thought his blood was turning into powder. So we are going to obviously be talking about mental health and how much it does or doesn't have to do with these murders. I don't know. I think this one's interesting because Robert Chase, I think, was a lot more clear cut for me, where I was like, he's got delusions. He's hearing things or seeing things that are telling him that this is what he's supposed to do. There's
a line between knowing right from wrong and doing wrong, and then not knowing right from wrong because you live in your mind is in some weird alternate reality.
Yeah.
And in your mind's world, what you're doing isn't wrong.
Yeah.
So this guy, does he kind of play jump rope with that line?
Kind of. His motivations are, I think, clear, but his mental health plays a big part in what those motivations are. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways. Okay. So, Hadden Irving Clark. And I did look it up. You do say Hadden. It's Hadden. Not Hayden, which is a real name. Hadden. Okay. He was born July 31st, 1952 to parents Hadden Sr., family name, and Flavia.
Well, okay then.
I know. Flavia.
Flav.
And just a fun fact
Does she wear a big clock around her neck too?
I hope so. But fun fact about her, that's not related to anything. Does Flavia not sound like it's maybe a Latin name or a...
Sounds like... It makes me think of fluvial.
Oh.
With a fluvial system, it's related to water.
Okay.
Flow.
It sounds I don't know. It doesn't sound very Anglican to me. But they made a point in this article to say that she could trace her ancestors to the Mayflower. So she's very white, is all I can assume. So Hadden was the second of 4 children. He had an older brother named Bradfield. Very white names we're going with. Mm-hmm. Bradfield was born in 1950, and then there was Jeffrey, born in 1955, and Allison, born in 1959.
Yeah, no, these are great white people names.
Yeah. Jeffrey spelled with a G, by the way.
Joffrey.
Geoffrey. Whatever. The Clark family was pretty well off financially because Hadden Sr. had helped invent cling wrap.
Cool.
Or toaster strudel, either one. I just watched Mean
They're
Girls.
very different things.
They are very different, but I just watched Mean Girls and I wanted to reference that. Do you not know?
Oh, I got it.
The inventor of toaster strudel.
Got it.
I'm just saying, if my dad had invented cling wrap, I would be saying, I don't think my father, the inventor of cling wrap, would be very happy to hear this. I wouldn't, really. I hate people that do that. Okay. So, both Hadden Sr. and Flavia were...
My dad could have invented cling wrap, and I would probably never know it.
He wouldn't tell you. Okay, so Hadden Sr. and Flavia were both alcoholics. So they're...
Fun!
Yeah. We say as we take giant swigs of our 2-shot.
Me too tonight.
I know.
Just kidding. Alcoholism is a disease. Well, in my mind, it's a symptom of a disease, but sure.
They're fine in the money department. But they both have drinking problems. They often fight in front of their kids. So, it's not a stable home. And there isn't any specific mention of mental illness within their family history from either parent.
Aside from the alcoholism?
Aside from that.
Well, I mean, also, are they actually alcoholics or are they just heavy drinkers?
That's true. I don't know. As a child, Hadden was described by some of his peers as evil.
Just a bad seed.
Yep. Not weird. I mean, he was described as weird, too, but, straight up evil.
There's a Instagram account that I follow called Mama Cusses. She's all about gentle parenting, and she's really funny, and just the whole parenting is a nightmare zone.
Yeah.
And she makes it fun.
Nice.
And she had a post about with twins, and there was a couple of points, and she's like, no, there is no good twin and evil twin. They're both evil. Full stop.
Oh my gosh.
So,
okay.
He was evil.
So he was bullied because he was weird and because any kind of thing that deviates from quote-unquote normal is targets for bullies. Mm-hmm. But other children were scared of him for good reason.
Was he one of those kids that would hiss at you?
Probably. Ugh. He was known to kill and dismember the neighborhood pets.
Yeah, red flag, yep. Red flag.
And he would target specifically those who were owned by the kids that bullied him. So, you bullied him, and then your pet would go missing.
So, not only was it, basically, he knew what he was doing was hurtful to others.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Whereas, I think, some, they don't understand that the animals have feelings or whatever, and that we should be nice to animals, and they're more, some of them it's more of a curiosity about well, how does this thing work?
It work? Yeah. No,
or
this was
just the curiosity of death in general.
Yeah. This was less aimed at, I think, hurting animals and more aimed at hurting the people that they were attached to.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
We're teaching Walker, gentle pets because he's like, dog. No, gentle. Jory just had, that was the other thing. On Thursday, Jory had surgery.
Again?
Oh. You just have lumps and bumps removed.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I had a sick and teething toddler at home all day, and it actually was on, because he came home late Thursday, so it was on Friday. Shelton was at work, and I was at home with a dog and a cone, and he's got lots of cuts and stitches. He's got 4 cuts all over his body, and a wild toddler, and I'm just like, oh God. Gentle.
Yeah. Ooh.
But he's got it.
Okay, good.
He understands to gently pet.
Gentle, yeah. So...
Not dismember.
Don't dismember, yeah. So part of this, like, him wanting to hurt the people that were attached to the pets, I think part of this was related to the fact that he never learned really how to react to, like, criticism or slights or...
Well, when your examples for communication
True.
are alcoholics who yell and fight.
Yeah.
I imagine there's probably not any kind of, like, resolution. Like, it's one thing to have a fight in front of your kids. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to do that, like, you need to see it through to the resolution and be like, okay, yes, there was yelling and raised voices, but we calmed down, we discussed it, and we hugged, and everything was fine after. Like, see it through.
Yes. So, Hadden kind of landed on retaliating. That's the word. That's his big buzzword for the episode. Retaliation.
I wonder if, along with the screaming matches of his parents, there might have been some plates or things thrown.
Yeah, and I often wonder, too, if his parents were, like...
Also vindictive?
Yeah. So he would retaliate in physical ways, and they were often disproportionate to the quote-unquote crime that had been done against him. So, for example, killing someone's pet because they were mean to you. And then one example, not necessarily of this, but just of the way he was, is one time he and Jeffrey, so his younger brother, were riding bikes, and he deliberately rammed his bike into Jeffrey's. And Jeffrey at this time was learning to ride with no hands. And so obviously Jeffrey goes flying, and he actually, like, hits his head when he falls off. So he gets, like, some kind of gnarly head wound. Hadden goes back to tell his mom what happens, and he says, "Don't worry, the bike's okay." So he's like, "There's an accident, Jeffrey got hurt, but don't worry, Mom, the bike's fine. The bike's okay." So, just not everything is firing and connecting the way it's supposed to.
Wonder if there was an unhealthy importance placed on the value of things in their household.
Possibly.
Well, I mean, it could have been like, maybe the kids broke a vase or a lamp or something, and parents got pissed but yelled at each other over it.
Yeah.
And yelled at the parent and at the kids. So he was like, "Don't freak out.
Don't worry. The bike is fine."
Fine.
That's true.
So, I mean, yeah, it could be that he's like a sociopath or whatever.
Yeah.
It could also just be like, that's what he learned to.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to set you off.
Yeah.
Because clearly we care about things.
Flavia, for her part, recognized that there was something wrong with Hadden. And at first she thought that maybe he had suffered head trauma at birth because of the use of forceps. And then I guess later on she thought that he might have cerebral palsy, which I'm like, those are very different and like pretty clear.
That's one of those you would know.
You would know. He didn't have any developmental delays at all, and he never tested for any kind of intellectual deficiencies. He was actually pretty smart. Like he was really good at chess, they said. So, like, I'm sure he was on the spectrum somewhere at some point, in addition to maybe other things. However, one thing that might have contributed to some of Hadden's future behaviors was the fact that Flavia used to dress him in girls' clothes and call him Kristen. Because both she and Hadden Sr. had wanted a girl after Bradfield was born.
They eventually had a girl, did they not?
They did. I think they wanted to do boy, girl, boy, girl. I don't know. But Hadden would continue dressing in women's clothes well into adulthood. And I'll just go ahead and say now, I have no idea if that was in any way related to, like, a sexual identity or if it was just related to this. So, after high school, Flavia enrolled Hadden in the Culinary Institute of America to train as a chef.
Did he want to be a chef?
Sure. I think she was thinking there maybe weren't a lot of other options open to him.
Okay.
Because I got the impression that maybe regular university wasn't an option for him.
It's probably like one of those, he was smart but didn't do well in school things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that life.
Yeah. What you're saying is you can relate to this man.
But I'm glad nobody intentionally enrolled me in culinary school.
Yeah.
Like, I love to cook, but that's just more school. That's taking a hobby that I enjoy and turning it into school, something I don't enjoy.
Also, I feel like it'd be like working in a restaurant kitchen for 4 years or however long culinary school takes, which sounds awful to me. He did fairly well at school, at this particular school, and he excelled at carving ice sculptures, which weirdly doesn't come back. That's not like a little thing I'm planting. It was just a fun fact about him.
Yeah, we gotta enjoy little bits while we can before we get to the gruesome guts of the story.
He continued demonstrating strange behavior, such as drinking blood from raw meats, which did not make him any friends. And he also continued his pattern of physical retaliation against what he saw as slights against him. For example, he one time, I hope it was only one time, urinated in a vat of mashed potatoes. I am not sure how he didn't get kicked out at that point, because you would get fired from Taco Bell if you did that. Not that they serve mashed potatoes at Taco Bell, but I'm just saying you'd get fired from anywhere else.
Why are you trying to poison Taco Bell? In my mind,
just don't get the mashed potatoes when you go there.
They have Fiesta potatoes, which I realized were back, and I got very excited about, and I was contemplating getting.
Maybe don't get those after this.
I'm gonna try those nacho fries.
There you go.
Haven't tried those yet.
So he graduated in...
I've been wanting Taco Bell for a week.
I know.
Damn it, Hannah.
I'm sorry.
All right, he graduated.
Yeah, sorry. He graduated in January of 1974. At first, when he graduated, he did not have any problems getting a job because he has this degree from this very prestigious culinary school. So he begins working in Provincetown, Massachusetts in 1974. And this is at what point in his life that he would later claim that he encountered and murdered Ruth Marie Terry. And he said that he cut off her hands and used her fingers as experimental fish bait. Again...
I mean, that's believable.
It is, but...
I use chicken necks to catch crabs.
Oh, we use chicken legs. They're cheap at the Piggly Wiggly.
That's where we'd get the necks.
Nice. But as far as I can find, he didn't give any reason for killing her. He didn't say, I met this woman and she called me stupid and so I killed her.
Yeah, where it seems like so far, any crimes that he's done or any kind of retaliation has always been provoked. And
then I also, as far as I could tell, they could not confirm. I think it just happened to be a coincidence that this, unsolved mystery turned up in the same town where he happened to be working, and the timelines kind of matched up. And so when he saw it in prison, I think he jumped on it. There was a short time, though, when I was researching this where I was like, maybe he did. And then I remembered her her husband, and I was like, no, I think that guy did it, probably.
And the others.
Yeah, and the other ones that he also definitely killed. Okay, so remember I said at first it was easy for him to get a job. It was not easy
to keep the job?
To keep the jobs because of his strange behaviors.
Yeah.
So after Cape Cod, he worked on a cruise ship called the SS Norway. Too many S's.
Yeah, that's in there.
He also worked on Long Island, and then he worked in Lake Placid. Between 1974 and 1982, he had a total of 14 jobs. And finally, in 1982, he decided to join the Navy as a cook.
How old was he then?
30.
I was about to say you were right around 30.
I was going to say 20, and that's not right.
Old for
old for the Navy.
I mean, for any military branch.
Yeah, and I think he was doing it more as I'm applying for a job, less as I'm enrolling in the military.
Right.
But predictably, that didn't go well because now he is very often wearing women's underwear just as a regular thing. And
I have no problem with that.
I don't have a problem with it either.
I mean, it's not generally very comfortable.
It's not. I know, and they would mention...
Especially if he wants the pretty stuff.
Oh, I know. The pretty stuff's not comfortable.
So...
And they would, later on, it's he likes to wear women's underwear and women's bras. And I'm like, why on earth would you...
why would you wear a
why would you put yourself through that?
If you don't need one, why would you wear one?
Like, why would you put your body through that? Bras are
like
the worst.
Even like a bralette that's like gotten, it's just more like a bikini top than anything. Even still, just ugh.
They're not comfortable.
It's making me uncomfortable.
I know. I
right
changed.
now.
I was wearing a real bra all day, and then I changed right before you got here into something less supportive. But in 1982, a bunch of Navy guys on a ship who were probably like, I mean, I'm not to project, but like a bunch of Navy guys on the ship, like there's got to be a couple closeted gays in there, obviously overcompensating. And so they see a guy who's comfortable with himself wearing women's underwear, and they beat the shit out of him. Anyways, so he got beat up a lot while he was in the Navy, and eventually he was beaten so badly that he suffered a concussion. And at that point, which was 1985, so he stayed in there for 3 years, he was given a medical discharge, and he was also at that point diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia.
That's probably the real reason for the discharge.
Yeah. So,
like, a concussion. Yep, nope.
Yep.
Can't have you here anymore. Sorry.
Oh, I forgot. I have a dossier for you. Your first picture is of Hadden if you want to see what he looks like.
I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's,
Okay. No, he's not bad. I was worried that he was going to be attractive.
Oh, no. No. Don't worry.
Like, I already know all this, like, horrible stuff. Because, like, sometimes you'll turn the tables on me and I'll be like, oh, he's cute. And you'll be like, oh, he's a total sicko. And I'm like, great.
Yeah,
but no.
There's a lot of pictures of him that kind of match. Like, you can kind of tell from pictures that things aren't right.
He's got some crazy eyes there, and there he just looks like a goober.
Yeah. And there's a lot of pictures where he kind of looks like a goober, but after you know what he's done, you're like, does he look like a goober, or does he look, And in case Jarrett cuts that out and you don't know what we're doing, Katy asked him to get gummy bears. At the store.
I meant it as a joke, because I hope he leaves in the grocery list his first interruption. This is highly irregular behavior from Jarrett, by the way.
It is.
He has not interrupted us for a long time.
I know.
God, was the last time that he interrupted us when Kelly had a snake?
Oh, God. No, I think the last time he did it was
a prank. The snake was real. The last time I remember was a prank.
What about when that guy was at our front door and he made me call the cops? Anyways, he just came back and he bought gummy bacon, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Doesn't taste like
it's
like a thick strip of melted gummy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, it's a unique gummy experience. Mm-hmm. It's not bacon flavored.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So, I bet there is bacon flavored gummies, and I'm gonna find it, and I'm gonna find it.
Go ahead.
All right.
After he is discharged from the Navy, he goes to live with his younger brother, Jeffrey, in Silver Springs, Maryland. Meanwhile, remember Bradfield, his older brother?
Unfortunately.
Okay. He's been up to some stuff while Hadden has been at sea. Mm-hmm. So, Bradfield got involved in drugs as a teenager, which, who doesn't? Me.
I waited till I was in my 20s.
I did too.
I mean, I've never tried the drugs, Dad.
I don't know why I'm still eating while I'm trying to talk.
Actually, no, I think I was still technically 18.
Mm.
It was college.
I was like late 20s. Anyways, no one ever offered it to me like they said they would.
I know. Clearly I wasn't very
really
cool.
hard to get.
And nobody wanted me to be cool either.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
no, wait, hold on. I know, we were already so cool.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Everyone was like, no, we can't improve upon that coolness with drugs, so we'll just let them be.
I was going to say, according to the ads, we were the cool ones who weren't doing drugs. Our brains were not scrambled.
Oh, no, I see. I always thought it was like, oh, try drugs. It'll make you cool.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We were too cool.
And we were just already cool. We didn't need the drugs to make us cool because we were already so cool.
Definitely
Clearly.
Definitely what it was. All right, well, Bradfield wasn't that cool, so he was doing the drugs. But he went on to get 2 degrees, 2 university degrees.
Hey, man.
And he went on to make a name for himself in the IT field, and he moved to California. And then, on July 20th, 1984, Bradfield invited his coworker, Patricia Mack, who's 29, and her husband over to his house for dinner. Patricia's husband couldn't make it, so she went by herself, like, as a friend. Mm-hmm. And once there, Bradfield began coming on to Patricia and making sexual advances at her, which she firmly declined. And in response to her rejection, Bradfield grabbed her and, quote, slammed her head repeatedly into a concrete wall. And then he strangled her until she was dead. And then he cut off her breasts and barbecued them and ate them. And then he cut up the rest of her body into 11 pieces and put them in trash bags. And then he put the trash bags in his car.
He's not even the star of our episode.
I know. Yeah.
Clearly this runs in the family.
I know. Remember when I was like, I couldn't tell if it was family related or not. When I first read about him, it was like a 1-sentence little blurb. And I was like, I'm sorry. He did what? And to who? And when? And so then I had to go find a whole article about it. And unfortunately, every article about him is like brother of, or it's like Hadden Clark's brother also was a cannibal in this way. And here's a short blurb on him.
This should be a much bigger deal.
I know. So, at approximately 6:15...
That's what you'd get for naming your kid Bradfield.
I know, Bradfield. What a terrible name. At approximately 6:15 on July 23rd, my birthday, police received a 911 call from Bradfield's apartment. And when they arrived, they found him with self-inflicted knife wounds from an apparent suicide attempt. I don't know how this came up, but apparently
I'm sure he just wasn't he couldn't make it to the grocery store and wanted a snack.
Also, gonna say this again, not to be gross, but like, of all the body parts you could eat off of someone, this reminds me of the Igawa,
mm-hmm.
whatever that guy's name is. Do you not know what breasts are made of?
Fat.
Yeah,
fat.
like, that's not gonna be good.
It's fat and glands. It's probably gonna be as gummy as these bacon gummies.
But not fruit flavored. It's not gonna be good.
No.
Like, it's not gonna be good. Mm-mm. And okay. So apparently while the police were there, they were like, hey, do you know anything about this woman who went missing in this area? And Bradfield was like, yes, she's in my car. So, which, I mean, thank goodness
The police are like, slam dunk.
I know, they're like, ooh, score. Which, like, I'm not sure how the husband wasn't like, hey, my wife went to this guy's apartment and then didn't come home. Unless he just didn't know, like, exactly where she was going. Or who she was going to meet. I don't know. Seems like very lucky break for the police.
Yeah.
But they went and looked in his car, and they did in fact find the bags with the remains of Patricia in the trunk of his car. He had apparently intended to bury them, but then felt guilty and tried to kill himself before calling the authorities.
How long was she missing before?
3 days.
Okay. That must have been a smelly trunk.
I know, in July in San Francisco. Yeah. Or near San Francisco. So he gave a full confession and was obviously convicted. I don't know how you would get out of that. He only got, well, I say only, he's serving an 18 to life sentence at California State Prison Solano. I did look him up there. He was eligible for parole in like 1994, I think. He's been denied parole 9 times, but the last 2 times it says he voluntarily waived his rights. So
he's just given up.
I think that's, yeah. But he is eligible again in 2026, which why is he eligible for parole? He killed, he ate, he,
mm-hmm.
Anyways.
Yeah. We know what he did.
Yeah.
We know what he did. We don't need to rehash. Because he's not even the star of our episode.
Yeah. So that's just Hadden's brother doing him.
Good Lord.
All right, so Hadden has gotten out of the Navy. He's gone to live with Jeffrey. By May of 1986, Jeffrey is like, you cannot live here anymore. Hadden's strange behavior had begun to affect Jeffrey's children. And by that, I mean Hadden had been caught masturbating in front of the children. And so Jeffrey was like, you have to leave. And Hadden was not super happy about that. On May 31st, around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, Hadden had returned to the house while Jeffrey and the kids were out to collect the rest of his stuff. So like I said, he wasn't happy about being kicked out. And also, apparently on his mind that day, was the fact that his 6-year-old niece, Eliza, so Jeffrey's daughter, had called him, quote, a retard a week before. Obviously not language we promote, but she's 6 and it's
the 90s.
1986.
Oh, never mind. I was thinking about when Bradfield was first opened. Yeah, it was still the 80s. Not that it was okay then.
Yeah, not that it was okay then. That's why I'm using it as a quote. So, while Hadden is standing outside the house near his truck, Eliza's friend Michelle Dorr walks up. Michelle is also 6.
Again.
And I don't know if
indirect retaliation.
I know. You can look at a picture of Michelle now if you want to. I almost didn't include it because she's so cute. I know. She's like...
Alright, tell me what happened.
Alright. So, Michelle's parents, Carl and Dorothy, were in the middle of an ugly divorce and custody dispute. Although both of them were very clear that, like, they both adored their daughter. They just hated each other. But that weekend, Michelle was staying with her dad, who lived a few houses down the road from the Clarks. And she'd been playing in an inflatable pool in the backyard for a little while, but she had gotten bored and wandered over to see if Eliza could come out and play with her. Hadden apparently saw an opportunity to, quote, get back at his niece for calling him a name. His 6-year-old niece. Get back at a 6-year-old. So he told Michelle that Eliza was upstairs in her room and that she could go on up. When Michelle was inside, Hadden went to his truck and took out a 12-inch chef's knife from his personal collection that he just carried around with him for his job. And then he followed her upstairs and surprised her. To her credit, Michelle did fight back, and she bit his hand when he covered her mouth. And this was after she had already been, like, injured. But he did kill her, thankfully, very quickly. I don't think it took long. After she was dead, it says that he tried to sexually assault her body but wasn't able to. So, fuck him. And then he got plastic bags and a duffel bag out of his truck. He put Michelle's body in a plastic bag and then in the duffel bag. And then he cleaned up the room because everything was now covered in blood. And mind you, this is his niece's room. His 6-year-old niece sleeps in this room. Everything that had blood on it, he put into plastic bags. And then he put everything, plastic bags and, like, Michelle's body, in the bed of his truck, which was covered with one of those metal caps. And then he went to work at his job at the Chevy Chase Country Club, where he clocked in at 2:46 p.m. So after his shift, Hadden went to the Bethesda Naval Hospital, where he got the bite wound on his hand dressed. Which I just want to say, why are hospitals not supposed to report? Like, they should be obligated, I feel like, to report human bite wounds. Or, like, at least ask questions and fill out an incident report, right? Mm-hmm. Be like, why do you have a child's bite mark on your hand? You have to explain that.
I mean, he probably was like, yeah, no, it was my kid or my niece. We were playing, or like, oh, my niece has issues, and she bit and a little too hard.
Ugh.
I mean, it does seem like something that's pretty easy to explain away. And especially if he's got, like, any level of charisma whatsoever. Probably pretty easy.
And I don't know. I feel like maybe... I don't know. I don't want to speculate. Because I'm like, he didn't have any charisma. But I feel like maybe he had a level of, like, garnering sympathy. Or, like, I feel like he was able to garner sympathy for himself.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so he gets his wound dressed, and then he drives towards Baltimore, and it's now around midnight. He stopped near a wooded area along Old Columbia Pike and dug a 4-foot wide hole at the base of a tree some ways into the woods. He put the entire duffel bag containing Michelle's body in the hole, but before covering it up, he, unclear on this, I have read several different accounts that said he drank some of her blood. Another account said that he, like, actually ate some part of her. Unclear.
Well, I mean, as we all know from Interview with the Vampire, you don't drink dead blood.
Obviously you don't. But he's already done that with the raw meat. So,
that's true.
I don't know. So he did some kind of cannibalistic thing. And then, for some reason, instead of, like... Well, maybe he... I don't know. Again, unclear. This made it seem like he didn't fill in the hole. He just covered it with parts of an old mattress that he had found and leaves. But I'm assuming he filled in the dirt and covered... Anyways. Meanwhile, back in Silver Springs, Carl Dorr, so Michelle's dad, had reported her missing shortly after 5:30 p.m. He had noticed that she wasn't in the backyard anymore, and he had just assumed that she was with Eliza Clark because that was, like, a very normal thing for her to do. Mm-hmm. They lived, like, 2 doors down. She's 6, and, like, that's not that far for her to walk.
I mean, I used to go to my friend Rachel's house all the time, and she was 3 doors down. Mm-hmm. But, of course, I always asked before I left.
Yeah, that's true. So, he, like... When he noticed that she wasn't in the backyard, he didn't immediately go looking for her. He was just like, oh, I'm sure she's at Eliza's. Let me finish up what I'm doing, and then I'll go grab her and, like, tell her it's time to come home. So when he did go over to the Clarks, they were home by then, and he talked to Jeffrey, who was like, nope, we've been out for, like, a good part of the day, and Michelle hasn't been here. So that's when he was like...
Panic mode.
Yeah, panic. I think he looked himself for a bit and then called the police. Police, as you will not be surprised to hear...
She has to be missing for 24 hours. She's 6. She's not a
6.
runaway.
I know. Well, they immediately suspected Carl in his own daughter's disappearance. The man who was reporting her missing. They're like, well, you probably did it. And I can only assume that was just because it was easier, like the easiest thing to do.
Well, I mean, there is a percentage of, I forget what it is, but it's a staggeringly high percentage of child abductions are perpetrated by one of the child's parents.
True. But how often does that parent is the person who reports them missing? And it's like, please help me find her. Search my house.
I mean, again, it's like, oh, I'm going to put myself ahead of this. I'm going to paint myself as innocent to remove myself as a suspect from the get-go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's risky, but it's a move.
Yeah. It sucks. I mean, there obviously was this awful custody battle happening. Unfortunately, Carl had made threats in the past to Dorothy about kidnapping Michelle. But, like, I'm sure he said it like, I'm going to take her and she's going to live with me. Yeah. And there's nothing you can do to stop me. Not like, I'm going to take her and hide her from you and the authorities and make it look like she's been kidnapped by someone else.
Right.
Yeah. Dorothy said that he was trying to get out of paying child support, and so she believed the police. It's literally horrible. All of the accusations and questioning by police eventually led Carl to have a psychotic break. He had hallucinations and delusions, and he had to be committed for 72 hours at one point. And he, like, goes into detail about, like, the hallucinations that he was having. Like, he was like, I thought my dead father was talking to me. Like, I thought I was Jesus Christ at some point. Like, I thought I had done it at one point. And I was like, damn, you really did have a psychotic break. Like, I'm so sorry that this stupid police.
So, I mean, not only is he, gonna have to deal with the grief of losing his daughter, he's also got all the badgering.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like,
the police badgered him to a psychotic break.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. The police did do, like, some kind of search. Well, I mean, they did a search for Michelle. They were just more focused on Carl being the one that had caused her disappearance. And
That's
during
the Occam's razor, the simplest thing, and like just there's a precedent for this kind of a situation, and you know it's more often perpetrated by a father than a mother. And,
yeah. So during this search, one officer who was canvassing the area came across Hadden at his brother's house again. So he stopped and he talked to him and he said, "Hey, were you here in the area on May 31st?" And Hadden said, "Yes, but I was only here for a few minutes." And so the officer, like, took down his name, and I guess later on they looked into his background and they found out that he was, quote, the neighborhood weirdo. And so they're like, well, let's bring him in and question him anyways and just see what we can get. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the police were going off of a faulty timeline for Michelle's disappearance. Because Carl felt so guilty about not keeping a better eye on her, he had lied and told police that the last time he saw her was around 2:10. When in reality, the last time he really saw her was closer to 12, when she actually walked away and encountered Hadden.
I don't have a 6-year-old yet, but I can't imagine going hours without putting eyes on him.
Yeah. And, like, I did see something else that made it seem like
it makes me nervous to leave him in his room where it's obviously, like, childproof and safe. Like, still anything could happen. Mm-hmm. But, like, he's locked in his room, and if I have to go to the bathroom, literally just outside, like, if I open the door just the right way, I can peek through the crack and see into his room. Like, he's right there.
Yeah.
I get nervous about that.
Yeah. Well, especially in a pool, too. Like,
yes.
Drown in a pool.
I mean, even a baby pool, she could slip, fall, hit her head, be knocked unconscious, and then drown.
Yeah.
God, sorry.
Yeah. Well, so he feels this horrible guilt that he wasn't, like, keeping a better eye on her.
I mean, let's be real. Rightfully so.
Rightfully, yeah, whatever. So he says 2:10. So police are like, okay, she went missing at 2:10. Well, Hadden, the first thing that he does when he gets brought in by police or whatever, he's like, hey, I clocked in at 2:46. Mm-hmm. Here's proof of that. And so police are like, well, 36 minutes isn't enough time to kidnap and hide or kill and hide,
then get to
work. So like, that's too small of a window. We don't think he really did it, but like, we'll talk to him, but like, low key under the table, he's probably not our guy because this doesn't fit.
He's a base. Let's cover it.
Yeah. So they do question him, and he mentions that the neighborhood kids weren't nice to him and that a boy had kicked him in the testicles one time. And then he tells police that he had, quote, playfully pinned a little girl down, like, on the ground one time. I don't know what the context was of that. I don't think there's a way that you can make it sound normal. Uh-uh. But police jumped on that, and they were like, okay, did you do that to Michelle? Like, you've done it to one little girl. Is that what you did to Michelle? Then they showed him a picture of Michelle, and he wouldn't look at it. And he starts to get, like, really uncomfortable. And suddenly he gets up, and he goes to the bathroom, and he starts throwing up. And he's just, like, freaking out.
Meanwhile, I'd be a police and be like, I know this doesn't add up with the timeline, but that's really guilty behavior.
Yeah.
Avoiding looking at the picture, huge red flag.
Yeah. So they follow him into the bathroom. They keep asking him questions, like, while he's, like, puking. They're sliding pictures of Michelle under the stall. And eventually Hadden says, quote, I may have done something. Sometimes I black out and I do things I can't remember, or I don't remember. And unfortunately, that wasn't enough for them to actually hold him. Mm-hmm. So they have to let him go. And I will say that, like, had he not actually been the killer and had he just been, like, a mentally ill person that lived in the area.
And also just admitting to blacking out.
Yeah. Or, like, if he really was just, like, the neighborhood weirdo and he didn't actually do any of it. Like, if this was a different person. But, like, who had these same mental illnesses and who's just weird, like, that the kids don't like him because he's weird.
Well, also, I'm sure they could see that he was in the military and was discharged because of his diagnosis for paranoid schizophrenia.
Yeah. I get why they did these things, but then there's also part of me that's like, I don't know if that's the way that you question, like, a person with those kind of mental illnesses. And I also think this is a great time to mention that the police should have some
training.
Some training in that area.
I think they do now. I mean, definitely more so now than
obviously,
in the 80s,
yeah,
but...
yeah, for sure. But I don't know, just a good.
Also, mental health wasn't looked at the way that it is today.
That's true. That's true. It's very sad.
I mean, it's just amazing in our lifetime how much has changed.
I know.
It's like we're old. We're not that old.
I know. I had to bring up to someone the other day the fact that, like, our generation is the one that the last one that remembers, like, living without, like, cell phones and, like, easy access to computers, but then also getting those things and it becoming easy access and commonplace. I'm like, yeah, man, we really did live through that. Like,
ours is a weird generation because of just how much technology advanced in such a short time.
Oh my gosh.
It exploded in a short period of time where up until now, technology has progressed and it's sometimes, faster than others, but it's always been kind of like a slow and steady thing. Like, not a lot happens right away, like, ooh, cars. Cars were a thing for a while, then ooh, planes. Yeah. Planes were a thing for a while. And then it just kind of started snowballing. No, I'm just saying, like, there was one hot thing for a while. Yeah. And then there was a new hot thing for a while. And then now it's like every day, it snowballed. Yeah. And, like, really kind of hit its stride. Yeah. Now it's a little scary. In the middle of our generation. Oh, it's terrifying.
I think about what those aliens said to those kids a lot.
I mean, look at all of, like, if you scroll through your Facebook feed, I guarantee you probably, like, 20% of the random, like, suggested for you pictures are actually AI-generated art. Yeah. Yeah. And it looks real. Yeah. There was one that I saw that, I was just skimming by, and I had to stop and do a double take because I was like, what the... And it was a car, but it was, like, a library on top of it, kind of a thing. So, like, it was, like, shelves. It was, like, in this, like, pillar shape. So you look at it, it looks like a real photo. But then the longer you look at it, you're like, wait a second. The bulk of the weight of this, like, multi-tiered, like, library shelf, pillar. Yeah. It just looks a little funky. It's, like, way too, like, new agey architecture. Yeah. But you look at the wheels of the car, like, the car is this long. It's like, imagine the car is, a foot long. Yeah. But both of the wheels are in, like, the first 4 inches of it.
Ooh, yeah, that's weird.
Like, there's no way this is real because the wheels are there. And then also there's just, like, little bits of it that just look wonkadoodle and out of place.
I hate that, like, the uncanny valley thing where you can see, like, the AI didn't get it quite right, where it's, like I have an app, like a photo editing app that I'll use a lot of times for the podcast pictures. But one of the things it has is an AI, just like, kind of like an auto enhance thing. And I like it because a lot of times it does, like, clarify pictures a lot and it'll kind of smooth things out or whatever. And so I usually will do that first, and then it'll show you the difference in the two, and then you can either accept it or choose not to use it. And most of the time when I choose not to use it, it's because it's, like, overly done something where I'm like, I can't put my finger on it, but that doesn't look real anymore. You've overdone it. You've over AI'd this thing.
The thing that frustrates me about AI is probably a lot of things, but I saw this image of a, like, crocheted lion or whatever that's giant. That's, like, 8 times the size of a normal lion or whatever. Jeez. Like, it's huge, and there's somebody standing next to it. So it looks really real. Yeah. And it's frustrating because that image is not real. Yeah. However, there are fiber artists out there who do crochet and knit life-size things. Like, there's this really interesting exhibit that I would like to see and learn more about. And it's somebody's, like, crocheted people. And they're people-sized. Ooh. And, with the exception of, like, them obviously not looking real, like, they're very, realistic looking. Yeah. And so it's like, this AI crap makes people believe that that's real, even though it's not. Meanwhile, there's actually these really talented artists out there who are creating real stuff. Yeah. Anyhow, soapbox. Over.
I know. I forgot even why we started talking about this. Okay, so they cut Hadden loose because he didn't really confess to anything. He just made himself look not great. The search for Michelle eventually goes cold, but police continue to suspect Carl this whole time. So after Jeffrey kicks him out, Hadden drifts around from rental to rental for a while before eventually living out of his truck or camping in the woods. And I think he was camped like in kind of a homeless community in the woods. It's unclear. His last landlord, before he started living in his truck, kicked him out because, quote, he seemed crazy and evil. And Hadden didn't like that, and so he retaliated by trashing and booby-trapping the house before he left. He balanced a 10-gallon bucket of oil over the door. He sprayed black dye on the carpets. He hid rotting fish heads in the piano, chimney, and stove. And he killed the family cats.
Cats.
Okay. 2.
Oh, it sounded for a second like you said kids.
Oh, no. Cats. Wouldn't that be a fun way for me to just slide into our next murder?
What?
No. So needless to say, he did not get that security deposit back. And he did get a destruction of property charge for that. And in 1988, he got an assault charge after he attacked Flavia on a visit to her home in Rhode Island. She caught him stealing from her, and so she confronted him, and he pushed her to the ground, began kicking her, and then tried to run her over with a car. And so she called the police.
Yeah.
And he got a year of probation for that. And then in 1989, and I believe that this is while he's still on probation, he is arrested for theft because he had gone into local churches dressed as a woman and stolen purses and coats from the women in the choir while they were practicing. However, the judge was sympathetic because of his mental state and only gave him more probation, no jail time. And his public defender was also very sympathetic towards him because he wrote him a letter or like a note, and I guess he made several copies of it, and he was like, keep this with you, and if you ever get arrested again, I want you to hand this to the police. And this is what the letter says.
I already hate it.
I know. And okay, I also want to say on record, if this was anyone else, then I think this is a great idea for someone who has maybe intellectual deficiencies, or which again Hadden does not, but maybe someone who doesn't know not to talk or to ask for a lawyer or something. This would be a good idea for them. Not for someone like Hadden, but I digress. So the note says, I want the help of my lawyer, Donald P. Salzman, and I want my lawyer to be present before I answer any questions about my case or any other matters. I do not wish to speak to anyone concerning my criminal charges pending against me or anyone else, or any criminal investigation regardless of whether I am charged. I do not want to be in any lineup or give any handwriting samples or give any blood, hair, urine, or any other samples unless my lawyer is present.
Wow, that public defender really covered all his bases.
I know. And then it says my lawyer's address and phone number are, and it lists all that out. And then below that was a place for a police officer to sign next to the phrase that says, to prove that I have read this statement to you, that I have read it, please sign here. So again, I think that is a great idea for certain individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that now.
Yeah. And I put these things in here, the police should have him on their radar. It's not like he's avoiding the authorities for these next several years. He's not. He's getting in trouble for real things. Now he has, like this article said, he has a get out of jail free card, like, in his back pocket. Yeah. And he's already murdered a 6-year-old. Hadden was also in and out of local veteran hospitals, like, all throughout this time. He would go in to seek treatment for his mental illnesses. He would get treatment. I think they would give him, like, antipsychotics or something. But he would only stay on those for a few days. And then he would return to whatever he was doing before that. And during one of those times, this is what a doctor said of his mental state. Quote, "His mental state is psychosis with questionable etiology. He states that birds and squirrels talk to him and keep him company. He is tearful at times with intermittent outbursts of anger and agitation. He is a potential danger to himself through poor judgment and self-defeating behavior." He's not staying out of the system. Like, police know who he is. He's constantly getting in trouble. And, like, also, doctors know who he is. And at least one doctor has gone on record saying he's a potential danger to himself, for sure. In 1992, Hadden, I keep wanting to call him Hayden. Hadden got
I like the name Hayden, so stop trying to ruin it.
Sorry. Hadden got a job working as a gardener for Penny Hoteling. I practiced saying that name, and then I forgot how to say it. I think it's Hoteling. Or Hoteling is how the British narrator said it in the documentary I watched. Hoteling. So this is in Bethesda, Maryland. Penny was a kind, trusting woman and thought she was doing a good deed by hiring Hadden, who was living in a camp in the woods at this point. So she's like, here's this man who needs work. I could hire, like, a gardening company, but this guy seems like he really could use the work, and, like, I'm going to trust him and let him do the work. And he actually did really good work as far as a gardener is concerned. And eventually, Penny let him use the kitchen and the bathroom whenever he wanted. And when he began stealing small things from her, she either didn't notice or she was too polite to confront him. And I think she confronted him once, but in just the way of saying, like, some stuff has gone missing. Do you know anything about it? Like, I don't think she was ever like, I think you're stealing from me.
Yeah.
And when she mentioned it, he got, like, really angry, and she was just like, never mind. Don't worry about it. Like, it's not that important. So Hadden becomes very, very attached to Penny. And she's also, I should mention, she's, like, not old. She's not elderly, but she is, like, old enough to be his mom.
Okay.
And so he starts to see her as a mother figure. Because Flavia has disowned him after the assault charges. So he is, like, very attached to Penny. Penny's like, you're a great gardener, whatever. I'm a trusting person. It's one of those situations where, like, he is mistaking her politeness and kindness for, like, affection. Yeah. That summer of 1992, Penny's daughter Laura comes home to live with her after graduating from Harvard. Laura is your next picture. If you want to look at it. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Laura was described by her friends as brilliant.
And she's pretty.
I know. Doesn't she look like a Harvard grad, too? Mm-hmm. She's giving...
She's got Harvard hair.
I know. And she's giving Legally Blonde vibes, too, right?
Mm-hmm. She's also giving Sarah Michelle Gellar vibes.
Ooh, I can see it. Like, that hair,
like
too.
Buffy. Oh, man. God, look at that choker.
I know. It's like a pearl choker. It's so beautiful.
No, those look like rhinestones. No, it is, I guess, pearls. I don't know. It's hard to tell in the printout.
Yeah, sorry. My printer is, like, almost out of ink. It's a problem. I printed these today. So she's described as brilliant. Her friends were like, she's going to be president one day. Like her mother, she was also very kind-hearted.
Oh, it's a conspiracy. We couldn't have a woman president yet.
I know. And she was really tall. She was blonde. She was beautiful, as we already said. And Hayden immediately resented her. Hadden. Damn it. Hadden immediately resented her. And felt slighted by the appearance of Penny's real child now living in her home.
Because favoritism.
Yes. So, in mid-October, Penny told Hadden that she was going to a conference out of town and that she would be away for a few days. specifically October 17th through the 25th. The very next day, Hadden went to the hardware store, and he bought 2 rolls of duct tape, some braided rope, and some nylon cord. He paid for it with a check, and in the memo line, he wrote, Laura. Which,
creepy.
I know, and that was honestly the point in the story where I was like, is it the mental illness? Because you're very clearly planning right now.
Yeah, no.
All right. On October 17th, 1992, so literally the first full day that Penny is gone, Laura spent the day watching football with her older brother, Warren, which wasn't that the boyfriend's name in Legally Blonde?
Mm-hmm. Warner. No,
Warner.
It was Warner.
Oh, man. I knew it was something close.
Yeah.
Another Harvard name. So she spends the day watching football with him, and then she had to be at work early the next morning, so she goes to bed just after 10 p.m. Hadden shows up around midnight. He is dressed in a bra and a pair of underwear that he had stolen from Penny. Weird. The fact that he stole it from someone he sees as a mother and is wearing it is the part I was referring to as weird.
That was also the part that I was hung up on.
To be clear.
I mean, at this point, like, he wears women's underwear. That's not weird to me.
That's fine.
I mean, like...
The mother situation is the part that I'm finding strange.
I think it's... I guess it's I don't understand the why. And it, like, it probably does go back to that childhood trauma of... the forced gender reassignment, basically. Yeah. Because for the most part, anyone who wears, or like a man wearing women's clothing, but like still like identifying as a man, like it's not common. I don't think. Like, I feel like there's more to it than there usually is more to it than just. Oh, I like wearing women's underwear. Yeah. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just clothes. Just because it's labeled women's underwear doesn't mean it's only for women. Also, it's like I feel like there's just more to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Generally than, like, whereas, but at the same time, like, whereas women are like, no, I wear boxers as, like, sleep shorts.
I was just going to say that. I was like, it also is a very much a double standard because I'm literally wearing men's sweatpants that I bought from Target in the men's section and a men's shirt. My bra is not a man's, and I'm pretty sure my underwear are women's because I bought them in the women's section. But like, who's to say?
Yeah, clothes are just clothes.
They're clothes.
It's just fabric you put on your body. Yeah.
It's not weird when a woman wears man's clothes. It shouldn't really be that weird when a man wears women's clothes.
And I don't think I'm not saying that it's weird that a man is wearing a woman's clothes. I just feel like typically there's more to it than just
like, I want to. Yeah,
you wanted to be comfortable, so you put on.
Oh yeah, this is because women's clothes are famously uncomfortable. Yes. This is the comfort.
That's the more to it. That it's more comfortable to wear men's clothing. Like I prefer men's flannels because they're actually flannel and warm, and there's like it's a thick material, not that.
They're not like squeezing the life out of your upper arms.
Well, and it's also not like a thin material that's just plaid and a little soft. Like that's not flannel.
I hate those. Yeah, I agree. Oh man,
so many soapboxes tonight.
Who knew one of them was going to be?
I'm fired up.
Our right to wear men's flannels. Oh my gosh. Okay, so he's wearing his ladies' bra and underwear that are pennies.
Yeah, that's the weird part.
That's the only weird part.
Don't steal your mom's underwear.
And wear it, yeah. He is also wearing a women's blouse and slacks, which are also possibly pennies. I don't know. He is wearing a wig and a women's trench coat, and he is carrying a black purse and a .22 caliber rifle that he is hiding beneath the coat. There is speculation, which I don't think this is well, I don't know. I'll let you give your 2 cents. There's speculation that he was dressed this way so that when he went in and came out of the house, people would think that he was Laura or wouldn't necessarily recognize him.
Right. It wouldn't arise too much suspicion for a woman to be going in and out of this house where 2 women live.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think it was just a disguise based on his history of this, but
I mean, so I was gonna question though that, like, yes, he's got a history of wearing women's underwear, and that's one thing, but you haven't mentioned up until now that he's, well, actually, I guess you did.
Yeah, when he was stealing
said that it continued into adulthood when you mentioned that he was dressed up as a girl when he was a kid.
Yeah.
But you might have just been referring to this instance, so.
Well, when he got charged with theft and he stole the purses and stuff from the church, he was dressed as a woman then.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
So he lets himself into the house with the spare key from the gardening shed, because of course he has a spare key to the house. And he wakes up Laura by nudging her with a gun. And at this point, he starts to not make a lot of sense. He starts asking her questions. He says, "Why are you in my bed? Why are you wearing my clothes?" And Laura is like hella confused. And she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about, but like, please don't hurt me. Tell me what you want me to do." And he says, "Tell me that I'm Laura." And she was like, "Okay, you're Laura. Be whoever you want to be."
So my friend Shanley, when she was doing her nursing school and she did the psych ward rotation, one of the doctors said something that I love when I try and think about whenever thinking about mental health and like unstable people, essentially. Don't tell them that there aren't any ducks in the room. Just help them shoo the ducks out.
I like that. That's good.
So Laura is on track right now. Just go with it. Like, I don't know why I'm in your bed or in your clothes. I'm sorry. Yes, you are Laura. Hello, Laura.
Yeah. I think at one point he even says, "Swear on the Bible that I'm Laura and not you." And so she's like, "Find me a Bible. I will do that. I will absolutely do that. God will forgive you later, Laura. Like, do what you need to." When he is done asking these weird questions, he makes her undress and take a bath. We don't know why he does that. And then he tells her to lie on the floor while he ties her hands and feet with the tape that he has brought with him. He puts tape over her mouth, but then apparently he, quote, got so excited he couldn't stop. And he covered her mouth, nose, and eyes with the tape. And she suffocated to death because she couldn't breathe. Because that's what happens when you cover someone's mouth and nose with duct tape, Hadden. They can't breathe. Allegedly, his plan had been to abduct her and take her back to his campsite in the woods and, quote, introduce her to Hadden. After she was dead, he cut off the tape from her face with a pair of scissors. Apparently he cut her cheek in the process, and then he cut off one of her earlobes because he wanted her earrings and he couldn't get the clasp undone on one of them. So he just snipped it right off. This is where I'm like, okay, reasoning skills are not there. And this is again where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, I hate blaming. I don't know how to phrase this.
Well, I mean, again, like, you have to look at it. Okay, in his mind, like, he's clearly not seeing the world the way that it is, He's seeing this nice lady as his mother. He is now threatened by the presence of her actual child. Yeah. And, is saying, tell me I'm Laura. Yeah. Like, I'm Laura now. Like, I'm going to take your place. So, like, I'm not a psychologist. But, like, you have to think, like, okay, well, in his mind, is what he's doing right or wrong? Yeah. And if it's in his mind, what is his reality? Is his reality killing is okay? Yeah. Yeah. Or is he still in our reality where killing is not okay? Yeah. But he has to do it anyway. Yeah. Right? Like that would kind of be the differencing thing. Like, oh no, what I'm doing is totally okay.
Yeah.
Versus knowing, oh no, you know, like, killing is bad, but I have to do it. Like,
yeah.
she can't be alive.
Yeah.
Or it sounds like in this case, he didn't have a true intention of killing her.
Yeah.
It was, he had a very loose plan.
Yeah, very loose.
Not fully formed.
Yeah.
He was more driven by just probably confusing thoughts, feelings, and then just urges of, I'm being replaced. Like, my mother abandoned me because, you know,
yeah.
I assaulted her, and now I don't have a mother, but this woman is being my mother. It brought me very confused. And
yeah, and again, like, the whole, he's doing it to, like, the relationships that he had, like, with, I hate to keep bringing up this guy, because I really do try to not ever think about him again, but with Robert Chase, he was killing people not to hurt the people, not because he didn't see any, well, he probably didn't see any value in their lives, but, like, he literally thought, I'm dying, this is the only way I can live, is for me to do all of these weird, gross, and, like, it was very, 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 very apparent, especially when they went into his house and found the state that it was in, that, like, he was
unwell.
Very unwell. And with Hadden, it's like, okay, I see what your reason is that you're upset that you are no longer Penny's, like, one focus and, like, the person that she is, like, showing affection to or showing kindness to. I feel like you've got to know that killing her daughter is not the way to deal with that. The whole, like, it follows that pattern of, like, reacting or retaliating in a way that's very disproportionate to what he feels like has been done to him.
Well, also, if he's been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, like, I feel like for the most part he knows right from wrong, but he has episodes where he, you know, and like he said, sometimes he does stuff and blacks out, and I'm like, I don't know how accurate that actually is.
Yeah.
But I feel like he just has these episodes and, like, these, like, psychotic break kind of a thing where, like, he's not really in our reality, but, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you need a palate cleanser real quick, or should we get through a little bit more, or?
Let me just get through until he's out of the house, and
okay.
Then I'll get you one. Or I'll take one from you. Okay, so after he's cut her earlobe off to get the earrings, so then he sat and watched her body for an hour. He would later deny that he sexually assaulted her or cannibalized her in any way. No idea if that's true or not. And then around 3 a.m., so he's been there for 3 hours now, he wrapped her in a sheet and carried her to his truck. And then he goes back inside, cleans up her room. He bags all of the bloody sheets, pillowcases, mattress pad, everything like that. And then he takes some of her things, like little trinkets and jewelry, as trophies. And then he puts all of that in his truck. And then he goes back into the house and he goes to sleep on her bed. And then he sleeps for like 4 or 5 hours because he leaves the house at 8 a.m. and he was actually seen by a witness leaving the house. And when she saw him, she would later tell police that she thought she was looking at Laura leaving for work in the morning. And that's why some people say they think he dressed up so that he could make people think that he was Laura leaving in the morning, so that when she was discovered missing, like, the timeline again would be off with, like, well, she wasn't missing from her house because we saw her leave her house at 8. She's missing from somewhere else. So Warren decides that he is going to walk the route that Laura usually takes to the bus stop. So while he's doing that, he sees Hadden in his truck coming down the road. Hadden was actually on his way back to the house to steal more shit. But Warren, like, flags him down because he is going to ask him if he's seen Laura, because he knows Hadden.
Yeah.
Because he's his mom's gardener.
Yep.
Yeah. So Hadden starts to pull over for him.
Why doesn't Hadden have a problem with Warren? Is it because Warren doesn't live there?
I think it's because Warren doesn't live there.
Okay.
Yeah. So Hadden starts to pull over, and then at the last second, he changes his mind and takes off. And Warren apparently doesn't find this suspicious. He's just like, oh, my mom's gardener's kind of weird.
People are dense.
I know. And Warren is also, like, surprisingly chill for the day his sister goes missing. And, like, I'd be suspicious of literally everyone.
Yep.
I'd be like, that guy didn't want to talk to me for more than 8 minutes.
Then again, I would also, like, be trying to be like, okay, don't panic. Like, let's, like, stop trying to look for the unordinary and everything. Like, let's just find,
move
like,
on to the
simplest thing, like, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe he was just like, let me just get to the bus stop. She's probably there. Yeah. But Hadden had been spooked by this encounter. And so he drove that night to a spot on I-270 where he buried Laura in a shallow grave. And then he drove towards New England and he stopped in Rhode Island where he had a storage unit. And that's where he put the bloody sheets, the mattress pad, and the trinkets that he had stolen from Laura. But he kept the bloody pillowcase because he wanted to, like, relive what had happened. Which is another thing where I'm like...
Yeah, no, serial killers keep souvenirs for that reason.
So when Hadden gets back to Maryland, at some point, he gets a phone call from police who are like, hey, we'd like to question you about the disappearance of this girl, Laura. And this is because, obviously, his name came up because he is their gardener.
Yep.
And, like...
Well, he also has access to the house.
Yeah. And so Warren mentioned him and Penny mentioned him. And when they said his name, the police had recognized it. And they had remembered that he had briefly been a suspect in Michelle Dorr's still unsolved disappearance. And so they're like, hey, can you come in? And Hadden's like, yeah, I'll come in tomorrow and talk to you. And then he immediately went back to the church parking lot near Penny's house, takes the bloody pillowcase, goes out into the woods near the parking lot, and gets rid of the pillowcase. And then probably takes another nap. I don't know. So he goes in and talks to police the next day. And
also, where is he getting this phone call from the police? Like, was he at
That's a great
Penny's
question.
house? Because, like, there's no payphones in the woods at a hobo encampment,
Maybe
I'm
he's
sure.
got a cell phone. I don't know. Well, it's 92.
He doesn't have a cell phone.
That's a great question. I have no idea how he's getting phone calls. I never thought of that. It just said he got a call from police.
If anything, he has a car phone, but that seems highly unlikely.
Not in that truck, no. They did say that he had a pretty decent amount of savings because they're like, well, living in your truck costs nothing. And he is working. So it's like he's working and just basically saving money. But yeah, I have no idea where those phone calls are coming from. Or going to. They're coming from inside the house, obviously. So during his interview with police, he says, I was sleeping when Laura... I guess they're presuming she went missing. Whatever. So he was like, no, I was sleeping last night, whatever. And they can't verify that. Like, who knows? So police are like, okay, we're going to make a note of you. They let him go. Meanwhile, police are like still frantically searching for Laura. And so they get some doggos involved because doggos are the best. And the very good dogs lead them to the woods near the church parking lot. Because it's 2 blocks from her house. Very close. And in the woods, they find one of Penny's bras, which I'm sure Penny was like, what is my bra doing in the woods?
Is this one of the ones that's gone missing?
Yeah. They find a woman's blouse, a high-heeled shoe, and the bloody pillowcase. They determine that the blood on the pillowcase matched Laura's blood type, and there is a single fingerprint on the pillowcase. Yes. So on a hunch... Police bring Hadden back in before the fingerprint was, like, analyzed. It's, like, in processing. And they're like, we have your fingerprint on the pillowcase. They're just, like, bluffing at this point. Mm-hmm. And
risky move.
I know. And similar to what happened when they were questioning him about Michelle Dorr.
Oh, did he start vomiting and saying, sometimes I black out?
He didn't start vomiting, but he did start to cry. And when they said, what did you do to Laura? He said, I don't remember. And since that's technically not a confession, and they didn't actually have a fingerprint of him, they let him go. But they did have enough evidence to get search warrants. So they get some search warrants. First, they search his campsite. Nothing turns up because he's put everything in storage. Mm-hmm. But then they search his bank account and they find the storage check.
Oh, the check.
Yes. That would have been great, though, if they found the storage unit.
I mean, he's paying for it somehow.
I know. No, they find the check, and they find the memo line that says Laura, which is why you should never fill out your memo lines on checks. It's like when PayPal or Venmo makes you write, like, what is this for? And it's like, Venmo, I know you're...
Nonsensical emojis.
It's like, I know you're doing this because you want to tax my friend for her services. My nail girl and I do that. She's like, don't put that it's for a nail service. Put something else. And so I'll just put emojis relating to whatever conversation we had that day. It's great. So the bank account, the check, they find the check, and then the fingerprint analysis comes back. And the fingerprint belongs to Hadden. So police are like, all right, let's call him. Oh, wait, he doesn't have a phone. Never mind. I don't know how we've been doing that this whole time. Let's go find his truck.
Let's get him in.
So they find him sleeping in his truck, and they arrest him and charge him with second-degree murder. At the trial, Hadden pled guilty because they had overwhelming evidence against him, and he was sentenced to 30 years in prison.
Did they find, or did he... this overwhelming evidence, did they get access to the storage unit? I'm assuming.
I'm sure they did. They didn't... Okay. It's not specified.
To me, that would be the overwhelming evidence.
Yeah, that's true. But this is in 1993, so it's a year afterwards is when he's sentenced. And then within days of his sentencing, he agrees to lead police to Laura's body. Which, again, is pretty remarkable that they were able to get a guilty verdict without a body, because that's, I think, pretty uncommon. So he goes to serve his 30-year prison sentence, which I am assuming Maryland is just, like, very light on their sentencing laws. His brother got, like, 18 years for murdering.
But that was in California.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It was 18 to life.
Well, it's still 30? I mean, I'm sure it's 30 to life, but come on. So, while in prison, he started bragging to some inmates. And this is when he detailed how he had killed Michelle Dorr. That's how we know that information. And those inmates who, I don't know if you know this, but inmates famously don't like people who kill children.
Yes.
They were like, oh, that's really cool, Hadden. I gotta go make a phone call real quick. So
any kind of violence, or like sexual, especially violence against children, not okay. Good. You are the lowest of the low on the prison totem pole.
I know. I'm actually surprised he didn't get murdered in prison.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So instead, these inmates are like, we gotta make a phone call real quick. Mm-hmm. They call police, and they're like, hey, we have a story for you. Also, but I'm not gonna tell you unless you promise to shorten my sentence.
Yep. And
luckily, police played ball with them. Part of the renewed investigation into Michelle's now murder was they reinvestigated the Clark home, Jeffrey Clark's home, and they found traces of blood in the floorboards of Eliza's room. Which,
God, can you, like, how many years later is this, too? Like, can you imagine, like, oh, man, my friend went missing and everyone thinks she's been, kidnapped or murdered by her dad. Like, there's this whole thing that I'm still too young to fully not comprehend. Meanwhile, I've been sleeping every night in the room where she was murdered.
Yeah. She's got to be a teenager by now, at least. And it's like, oh, cool. Actually, there's been blood, your friend's blood, in the floors this entire time.
Like, I'm not a person who gets, like, creeped out of, like, oh, somebody died in this house. Like, lots of people have died in lots of houses. Like, it happens. Like, it doesn't creep me out. Like, to know that, like, if somebody had died in my house, like, be like, oh, that sucks. I hope it was when they were old and ready to go.
Yeah.
And not murdered because it sucks. But it wouldn't creep me out. But, like, if my childhood friend was killed in my room, that would mess me up a little bit.
I really hope that they weren't living there anymore, and I also really hope that, like, they just didn't tell Eliza about that. Yeah. They were just like, never mind. But they were able to collect enough evidence, again, to convict Hadden without a body. So he was convicted finally of Michelle's murder and sentenced to another 30 years. And after this conviction, Hadden meets a man in prison who he believes is Jesus Christ. And I meant to find a picture of him because I saw a picture of him because the author was like, he actually did look a lot like common pictures of Jesus. No, he doesn't. He just has long hair. It's just a guy with long hair. But Hadden starts telling prison Jesus that he had murdered a bunch of women in addition to Michelle and Laura. And so in 2000, they make a deal and police take prison Jesus and Hadden. Sorry, I'm hung up on prison Jesus here. They take prison Jesus and Hadden to 4 different states outside of Maryland so that Hadden could try and point out where other victims were buried. This included him leading them to Michelle's body in January of 2000. So that was the first one.
Well, that's nice that her parents were able to recover and put her to rest.
I know. And like this documentary thing I watched on YouTube is like has interviews with her dad. Like as of right now, which is horrible because I'm like, he's not that old. Like he's like our parents' age. And I'm like, this is very upsetting. But he's like, well, we buried her in a plot right outside of DC where like my dad's buried and she's like the 4th generation of our family that's buried there. And I'm like, you shouldn't have to bury your child. This is terrible. Part of this deal that I'm assuming Hadden stipulated on these circumstances. So Hadden was like, I will not go out in public with you guys unless I am wearing women's underwear, a bra, and a wig. And so police went and bought these things for him at a Kmart, of all places. Which, like, I feel like it has
Didn't know they sold wigs at Kmart.
I know. Can you imagine wearing a wig that came from Kmart? Like, it's not great. But they give him these things. They're like, he wore them under his prison uniform. And he was happy to, like, show us around. But no other bodies were ever located.
So did he ever point out where Laura was buried?
Yeah, he did that right after he was convicted of her.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So they didn't find any bodies, but they did find a large bucket, which I think I mentioned to you last time. A large bucket buried on the edge of his grandfather's former estate. And in this bucket were approximately 200 pieces of women's jewelry, including Laura's class ring. Hadden claimed that all the jewelry was from women that he had murdered. Which is a lot if he's telling the truth. FBI behavioral scientists estimated that he had killed between 12 and 22 people. And this was just based on how comfortable he was, like, handling dead bodies and, like, how well and how easily he cleaned up crime scenes. They were like, you've done this more than just, like, 2 times. And, like, someone also said, like, if you could kill someone that, like Michelle, you can kill anyone.
Yeah.
So, it's unclear if he's bragging or making it up. He's currently serving his 60-year sentence at Eastern Correctional Institution in Westover, Maryland, and he will be 71 years old next month. And that is the story of Hadden Clark. So sorry for everyone.
Well, if you want to see pictures from tonight's episode, check out our Facebook and Instagram at The Tales We Tell Podcast. If you want to support us and get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, check out our Redbubble store. Search The Tales We Tell. We've got several different logos. You can put that on anything.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want to support us but you don't need the stuff, you can become a patron at patreon.com. Search The Tales We Tell. All patrons get early access, commercial-free listening. They get access to bonus content. Sometimes we send out stickers and love notes and other random fun stuff. So, yep, always a good time. And also, if you're enjoying things, maybe not this episode in particular with all of its delightful aspects.
So sorry.
Please drop us a review, 5 stars.
Yay.
A little blurb about how much you love the show.
Or
Or just a review. That's how other people can find us.
Yes.
And listen to other really just uplifting episodes like tonight.
Oh,
It was a whiskey episode for sure.
I know. I promise next week will be better, only because my brain cannot handle doing another episode like this week. So
I just need to like shut down. I need a couple of days.
I was gonna say I can make up the guest room for you if you want to just go crash here, and I'll call Shelton and be like, I don't know where she is. She left here an hour ago.
That won't send him into a tailspin of panic. Oh,
she said something about running away from her life. Taco Bell and running away.
No, I texted him last night. I'm like, I'm ready to run away screaming from this house.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.